Hey guys, we're gonna talk about Megaman again. I know that I went a little crazy in my previous video, especially on those last few seconds. I scared myself when I look back at that footage. But I'm more composed now, and we're going to look at this a little more seriously. Now, this video is not going to be like this. It's basically going to be a podcast, and if you want to open up another tab and find something else to look at while you're listening to me, that's fine. But the video has to be done this way, because if I did it like this, just without a script or anything, who knows how long it would take me to ramble about everything and somehow cover it all up in one clip. So yeah, let's just move on. I really hope that you give this video the time of day, because I've put a lot of thought into it, and that's basically all I can say. For a long while now, Capcom has been pretty indecisive about what to do with the Mega Man franchise. Now, Capcom of America still seems to care, but they answer to Capcom of Japan, unfortunately, and these top men that they've said have been discussing where to take the franchise for years now don't appear to care at all. There's a lot of different factors that one can dwell on, and it's difficult to point it all to any one particular element as a source of the entire problem. You could say that they were mad at Keiji Inafune for making games like Lost Planet and Dead Rising behind their backs when they told them not to bother with those games, and that they just weren't okay with taking risks with new properties they weren't certain would sell, and the simple fact that these games did sell wasn't enough to make them any less mad at him for what he did. You could say that all the best people at Capcom, the people who made it what it is, have left what is now a sinking ship of a company, manned by an inexperienced crew who are completely out of touch with their own franchises and fan base. You could say that Mega Man isn't their equivalent of Sonic and Mario, and it's just some random, overrated, obscure little thing that really isn't all that and isn't financially viable, and that any smart businessman would eagerly abandon this unnecessary franchise. Yeah, right. You could say that the people in control really aren't all that bad, that they do want to make something with a franchise, but just can't figure out what to do with it, and are too hesitant to really try anything, out of fear that something will go wrong and that they'll make a misstep and fail. Some say the reason Legends 3 was cancelled isn't necessarily because the game itself would have been a clunker, but because Capcom was just under a lot of pressure at the time and simply had to cancel something to save money and keep themselves from going under. So they rolled with some fighting games and put Mega Man on the chopping block. Whether you think this was a smart decision or not, it does show where their priorities lie. Personally, I just don't care about those other games. On the other hand, you could say that they really just shit-canned Legends 3 to get back at Keiji for not playing by the rules. The economy is in the shitter right now, and people are much pickier about what games they spend what little money they have to spare on. Heck, I only find myself buying a few games a year now, one a month at most. This has made many companies extremely reluctant to venture out of their comfort zone and take a risk. I mean, what if things don't go well because they dare to take a chance with something they weren't absolutely certain would break even? So many companies have gone under and drowned because one or two games failed. So yeah, to some extent, I can sort of sympathize with these top men being timid and viewing Keiji as a traitor and a fool for going against their wishes. But I respect Keiji for that. He's a visionary who didn't give a crap about money and was simply confident that his products would be successful. He knew how to make things that gamers would love, and that's all that mattered. But the people around him didn't feel that way, so he left them because he was simply too good for them. However, he may very well have been the only lifeline keeping Mega Man alive. The sad fact is, games like Mega Man ZX and Star Force and so on didn't sell well. You could say that ZX Advent was the final straw. They had the makings of a plot ready for a third game, but it didn't sell enough copies to warrant that they make one. I find this a shame because it's a good game! In fact, there are very few Mega Man games, old or new, that I would ever call downright bad. I think the ZX games and the Star Force games, with the second being a possible exception, were gratifying experiences that were worth playing. Heck, ZX is actually one of my favorite Mega Man games. The reason these games didn't sell well isn't because they were bad. A lot of Mega Man fans were simply alienated by them and couldn't get into them, which really is such a shame. I can't speak for them, but I did my part. I bought all of these games on day one. Not because I'm some fanboy who will play anything with Mega Man in the title, regardless of how bad it is, but because I just didn't see those as bad games. The greatest strength of Mega Man, whether the 2D jump and shoot gameplay stays or not, is how it can be reinvented time and time again with new worlds, characters, and abilities. But because it's been reinvented so many times, the fanbase has been broken up into itty-bitty chunks instead of one unified whole. I like most Mega Man games whether they're different or not, but apparently I am in the minority. Most Mega Man fans only really get into this sub-series or that sub-series, and it's surprisingly rare that you find someone who's open-minded enough for any particular series to suit their tastes. And I just think that's sad. Because of this, it's hard to avoid that it is difficult to make something that will appeal to most or even a lot of Mega Man fans, and not just be pandered to this faction or that faction at the expense of the other ones. If only Capcom could produce something that would bring all these people together and draw them into one juggernaut of a game. I don't think it's impossible, but maybe that's what Capcom is having such a hard time figuring out how to do. Capcom has become so reluctant to try anything substantial that they're using truly terrible products like X-Over as a measuring stick to see if people still want to play Mega Man games at all. Capcom seems convinced that there's only like 500 Mega Man fans in the world, and that making an actual game, and not just a mini-game that some guy on Newgrounds could make, will result in all their employees starving to death. Because of this, there are those who say that we should be grateful that we got anything at all, and suck it up and play trash like X-Over simply because it's there and is somehow connected to Mega Man, regardless of how bad it is. And let's not forget about Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, a decent game Capcom themselves didn't even make and just promoted for the sake of churning out something that people might actually like. This just shows how redundant Capcom has become. Because the Mega Man fanbase is so starved for content as of recent years, they're making their own games since Capcom just won't bother to. Even then, some would say that if the Street Fighter characters weren't there, not as many people would have bothered looking into it, that Mega Man himself isn't what sold the game. I find this to be an extremely pessimistic way to look at the game, but it does make me wonder. Then again, I don't think the numbers of members in a dev room or likes on a Facebook page are a reliable measuring stick. I mean, it's not like every single potential Mega Man fan in the entire world left one of those likes. People say that the fanbase is shrinking as Capcom continues to neglect it, but new people are discovering the franchise every day. I get messages from people saying that they just got into the series and are having fun playing these games. It may very well be that Capcom just isn't doing enough to market such products, and countless people who could wind up being fans just aren't informed enough to know what they're missing. I believe there will always be potential for the franchise whether Capcom is willing to take the plunge and tap into that potential or not. Some of you, no doubt, are going to say that these businessmen would be foolish to waste money on a dying franchise because, well, it is all about money, and yes, I get that. But I think it's important to establish a fan base that will stick with you and continue to buy your products. Capcom seems more concerned with making immediate profits, limiting their scope to a constant state of scrambling to make a quick buck for the moment. But they need to focus on how they'll do in the long run, not just right now. If Capcom managed to rally its fans together and keep those fans by giving them consistently good products so that they won't want to jump ship, then that should be enough for them to get by. Sad to say, a lot of their games haven't been very good lately. Resident Evil 6, DMC, and I don't just mean that these games aren't selling well, but that they really are just subpar games that look nice but aren't anything special. The sad fact is, games have become such a ridiculous undertaking in recent years to make, with the budget of some games rivaling those of blockbuster movies. Games have become so expensive to produce that it's just another thing to add salt to a wound when a game doesn't fare well. Sure, they can make these games look as nice as they want, but if the gameplay isn't substantial, that just kills them. Honestly, I don't know what to make of the situation with Mega Man. The last few years have just been really draining for me as a fan. And you know what? It wouldn't be, if only they just came out with the truth, whatever it is. Part of me can't help thinking that they really are just being jerks. They keep saying, "Oh, we're working on something," to keep us content, to string us along for a little while longer. If Capcom were being honest, they'd say, "No, we don't want to make Mega Man games because we're sick of them, now shut up!" And if that really is the case, and they just don't want to bother making anything to do with the character, then maybe anything they would make would just be more of the same passionless crap like X-Over. In that case, I can understand some people saying that Mega Man is better off dead, because anything made by Capcom themselves would inevitably be shovelware as they run him into the ground. But in that case, I see Capcom as the real problem here, not the franchise itself. What I really don't get is why they don't just let someone else make a game. And no, I don't mean that they should outsource him to some random fledgling company run by people with no experience who are desperate for work and will just take anything that comes their way, no matter what it is. I mean, find some group of people who truly love the Blue Bomber, who were inspired by these games, and would eagerly jump at the chance to make their own spin on it, to renew the franchise and make things come full circle in their vision. 'Cause believe me, they're out there. Heck, Keiji himself requested that Capcom give the rights to Mega Man back to him so that he and his team could finish Legends 3. But nope, they aren't letting Mega Man go anywhere. This is really strange to me. Even if you brush off the possibility that the company is just run by a bunch of vindictive douchebags who are being totally unprofessional by doing all of this out of spite, that just makes me wonder. Do they really have so little faith in Mega Man that they simply aren't willing to do anything with him? Or do they actually think that there is still some money to be made even if it isn't as much as they want? Could it be that they're afraid that shit-canning the franchise outright would make them lose a lot of fans after all? Could it be that they do want to keep him, but just don't know what to do with him? That if only they could come up with something they had confidence in, they would. But for the moment, they can only try to placate the fan base with creature comforts in the form of endless merchandise. Even if you look at it that way, there's no getting around the fact that regardless of how they really feel about the franchise, they've got it in this unnecessary stranglehold and are pointlessly stifling whatever potential it still has. This is why I can't move on, people. If only I had some sort of closure, be it a final game made to end everything on a good note or just Capcom's word that they truly are done, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't resent them so much. But we've been doing this dance for so long now, pussyfooting around all these issues, that it's torture. Their actions tell me that for whatever reason, they aren't completely willing to give up on the Blue Bomber. And as long as even the faintest possibility, the tiniest sliver of hope, that there may be a new Mega Man game someday exists, I'll never be able to put it behind me. Then again, maybe they are making something behind the curtain and just lied about it at PAX. Maybe they've learned from their mistakes and aren't going to reveal anything until they're absolutely sure that people will get to play what they see. I really don't have that much faith in them. But I do have faith in the franchise. Make no mistake, I don't want a Mega Man 11. I don't want more of the same. I don't want just another run-of-the-mill Mega Man game for the sake of it. I want something new. And in my next video, I'm going to expand upon that with some ideas I have for potential new games, because I'll never give up on the Blue Bomber, and I'll always believe that there's still potential for the franchise. I apologize if this video was basically just a podcast, but it had to be made this way. If it was unscripted, who knows how long it would have taken me to cover all these things in my unfocused rambling. In my next video, there will be more to actually see, and not just a sound of my voice against a void or a few screenshots. Toodles!